Chelsea, you can't learn stuff on YouTube. It's an absolutely terrible place for students to learn anything, but especially photography.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd be arguing this here and now. But also, I don't really completely agree with you.
Okay, we're going to get into this. This is the Picture This Photography podcast. I'm going to completely attack what it's like to try to learn things on YouTube. I'm going to tear it apart from the perspective of somebody who has been teaching for 25 years. It's terrible.
Okay, but we're also going to go into why YouTube keeps you from all of the lessons you could be learning and how to learn more about your craft. And Tony, you've been freaking out all day, so I'm expecting you to spout off for this whole podcast. But first, a word from our sponsor, Squarespace. If you want your photos to look great and have a portfolio or an online store, you can do that today by going to Squarespace. They have beautiful templates that are so professional and clean, and it's also so easy to use. You can get a free trial today for 14 days by going to squarespace.com/Tony and using the coupon code Tony to get 10% off, and all of that is in the description down below.
Thank you, Squarespace.
Okay.
Here's a comment.
This is the comment that triggered you?
Yeah, well, let me back up. A few videos ago, I was plugging our #1 photography book, Stunning Digital Photography.
Yeah.
And as well as our Lightroom and Photoshop training. Some stuff you have to buy. You can't just watch it for free on YouTube.
Everything should be free.
And I said, you can't learn stuff on YouTube. Here's how you should actually learn stuff. Structured learning with practices and quizzes and a forced curriculum. One of the comments I got was, I learned Photoshop and everything to do with Lightroom, all the things you could possibly know about photography through YouTube. It is without a doubt possible to learn everything off of just YouTube videos. And I totally understand from a YouTube viewer's perspective why this feels like a true statement.
See, I don't think this is completely untrue. What I think makes it difficult is that you often don't know what you don't know. And so he would have to probably get a curriculum from a professional and then go seeking out every single topic in YouTube videos. So I think it's possible, but I think it's actually more challenging than just buying a comprehensive series.
It's like empty calories. Like YouTube will make you feel like you learn stuff, but you don't actually get what you think you got. You don't actually learn photography from YouTube. You don't.
You do. I think you're wrong.
Okay. I opened up a logged out window on YouTube and I searched for the phrase photography, imagining what a new student of photography would find. First thing that comes up, of course, it's an ad.
Yeah, but it's Toby. He's wonderful.
And Toby is a delight.
So 1 point for me. You get Toby, and he's great.
The second video, solo film photography hike to a snowy alpine lake.
That seems random.
Does that seem like the right starting point for somebody just getting into photography? It doesn't make any sense that YouTube would suggest this video until you look at the next video, Team Challenge Special, Best View on the Isle of Skye. Both of them have the term photography in the title, and they were both released within the last 24 hours. And that is the only reason the YouTube algorithm suggested these things for the phrase photography. You would think it would say, hey, you're interested in photography. Here is a nice curriculum. Start with the basics, move through some advanced stuff. We'll take you through a variety of, no, there's no structure to it at all. Just whatever videos have the word photography in the title from the last 24 hours.
So you know the content you're getting is really fresh and up to date.
It just makes me so mad. But YouTube loves recency. And it didn't used to always be this way. So if you have experience, if you learned photography on YouTube in 2018, or maybe even 2019, it was a different situation. But in 2020, YouTube is only showing people stuff that was made in basically the last 48 hours.
Really? It's changed that recently?
Yes, they keep tweaking the algorithm. And all of us educators now need to be churning out content on a regular basis or the algorithm completely forgets you. It also sort of shows videos to people from creators that they've recently clicked. So if you're making videos regularly, then people are clicking your videos regularly, and then the next one you make, it'll suggest it to them too. You gain momentum. But if you aren't making videos on a regular basis, you're also losing momentum. from the perspective of somebody teaching or somebody learning, does that make any sense?
Well, do you feel like maybe you have really high standards for free education on YouTube because you have a history of teaching in a really structured way? Like you wrote like 35 books on programming or whatever. Sorry, I don't really know what you did with all that time. But I know that you had to be really specific and use specific language and that it had to be structured, you know, from start to finish intelligently. And I'd see your outlines and there would just be these branches and branches of information setting up the curriculum. So maybe you're expecting a little much from the YouTubes?
Okay, so background on me as an educator. First, I was never a great in-class student. That's not how I learn. I don't like sitting in a lecture hall.
Yeah.
Instead, I like reading books and I like watching videos. That's how I learn stuff. And once I started my tech career in the mid-90s, the only way to learn that stuff was through books because college classes had computer science courses that were 20 years outdated. And so I was reading books all the time, and then I got an invite from Microsoft Press to write books. And I got the opportunity to work with like amazing editors, people like Ann Hamilton, all these people who have graduate degrees in education, some of the smartest people on the planet who have dedicated their entire lives to figuring out how people learn through self-paced learning.
How do you think Ann Hamilton would feel about YouTube?
Oh, she would absolutely despise it. I know this because I submitted so many chapters to Anne, and she would look at it and be like, this is too disorganized. She'd be like, you use this jargon phrase, and people who are English as a second language, that's not going to click for them. In fact, she would never say that's not going to click for them. She would say, they will not understand this.
Yeah.
Because I just used jargon there, and in my mind, I heard Anne's word comment coming up.
So you have this history of highly structured educating with other professionals training you and teaching you, and now here you are on YouTube, which is like the wild west of education. I think it's great because it's free for the person learning.
I love that it's
They
free.
just have to give their time.
Right.
But they still, you guys still complain you don't want those ads, but that's how you're paying is with your eyeballs. But how can you beat that? I mean, maybe it's not as structured, but a lot of people can't afford like the books that you would write would be like $80.
They would be expensive, and you would actually need a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it was results focused. Like, we didn't just try to get people to sell the book. I was working for Microsoft, and so we needed them to buy the book, read the book, and then actually be able to implement that in their job so that they would buy the really expensive software and build out entire networks and stuff, because that's how Microsoft actually made their money. So they actually cared about learning and producing results. And to this day, that's what I care about when I teach photography, learning and producing results.
You actually still get emails from people saying they got their certification in some coding language because of you.
Some coding language.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm a disgrace. So this whole YouTube loves recency thing isn't like jiving with your education.
No, it's like, if this were books, it would be just going and buying the most recently published book instead of the best photography book.
It might actually be like buying a book and then shuffling up all the pages and then grabbing a handful and throwing them out.
Yeah, or just picking the page that looks coolest to you. And
That's
just reading
what
that
I do
one
when I
page.
flip through a book. I'm like, go pictures.
Okay, next topic. I'll just scroll to the next page. I'm searching on
Okay.
YouTube for the phrase photography. I went through the first 3 results and it was garbage. Let's look at the next 3 results.
Oh gosh, I'm telling Toby.
Toby's great. The third video result seems useful. The title is, all caps, Photography Basics in 10 Minutes. And then the thumbnail says, learn 80% of photography in 10 minutes.
That sounds wonderful.
Wouldn't
And that
it be
could have
great?
saved me a lot of time, so I will be checking that out.
It has a great thumbnail, and the title promises a whole lot.
Did you watch it?
No, I'm
So
not
how
even
do you
watching.
know? Points for me.
You couldn't learn 80% of photography in 10 years. I've been at it for 25 years, and I've scratched the surface.
Not everyone's a slow learner, Tony.
And the next video is photography to another level, amazing photo effects. And we see somebody's laying on a bunch of oranges in a grocery store with the photographer taking a picture over them.
Imagine trying to buy oranges. I'd be like, miss, please get your hair out of my oranges.
But I'm sure it ended up being a cool Instagram shot. And I'm sure that somebody could watch what they did and make their own cool Instagram shot.
May I argue with you again?
Okay.
My argument for this is maybe you can't learn all of photography in 10 minutes, but you can start to see there are things you don't know and that you may have to go research more. So we didn't watch his video, so we can't judge him, but he may just scratch the surface of many theories that people need to then delve into. For the little amazing photo effects girl on the oranges video, yeah, you probably won't be learning the rudiments of photography. You won't be getting your fundamentals. But when people see your friend laying on oranges and you get a bunch of likes, that might be the thing that gets you to go out and take your next picture where you learn just a little bit more. Okay. You're inching towards, this education.
I'll concede that point. It is very important when teaching something, especially when it's self-paced, to give the student a quick win up front, to make them feel like they can do it, to make them want to continue on. It has to be constantly encouraging, and it has to start easy enough that they can actually do it.
Absolutely. So I taught piano lessons for 12 years, and one of the things I would do was give the kids something really easy I knew they could do. Because self-esteem is such a big part of learning, and just being able to tell them, wow, you did it. See, it's not so hard. Now let's do something incrementally more difficult. And it gives them this drive to want to learn more.
And so when we teach, a lot of what we do is say, okay, here's one little nugget of photography, a little quick tip. And if you want to learn more, you can buy our book, Stunning Digital Photography or Lightroom or Photoshop books or whatever, because it's only scratching the surface and we need to lead them into a complete curriculum. But that's not the way most YouTube education is. Most of the time you just click on the next little video and it never goes anywhere. And it's like following a recipe versus learning to be a chef. Like anyone who eventually becomes a master chef started by following recipes and probably felt inspired by that, probably had some quick wins. But
yeah, but you know what? Do you know Julia Child? She had to learn how to just chop onions all day. And who really wants to start cooking like that?
But you need somebody to take you from the tip then into the deeper lesson. And YouTube will not do that. They will say, oh, this person likes quick tips. Here's 10 more videos with flashy thumbnails that are quick tips. And in fact, they'll probably be the exact same topic. Like if they actually click a video on a boring subject like aperture, you will then get suggestions for more aperture videos.
And then you're in your own echo chamber of what you think photography education is.
Yeah, literally people will go down that loop and they'll be like, photography is all about aperture, I guess. Once you understand f-stops, you pretty much are done. That must be all there is, because that's all.
Have to take pictures with produce. I'm getting all produce related tutorials.
And the lesson here is that as an educator, it's clickbait or die.
Okay, that's your next point. This whole clickbait or die structure makes it so that the educator also has to tailor what they're doing to the people watching.
Yes, you cannot teach what you think people should know. You have to teach what you think they will click on.
Okay, so here's my other argument, Tony. I have something called the zucchini fries method. I've been tricking all of you, and Tony knows about it. And that's when I do something kind of clickbaity. I show people what I think they want to learn, and then I sneak the real education deeper in there. Not unlike deep frying your vegetables for a child. I'm sorry.
Well, Chelsea is a great educator who actually cares. You care about people learning, and I do too. But not everybody does. A lot of people really just want the clicks, or they don't have a background in education like you and I do. And they don't necessarily know any better, because a lot of people on YouTube don't necessarily know that they aren't learning photography by just watching a bunch of tricks.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow the clickbait methodology, then nobody watches your video, and then you don't get paid, and then you can't do it full time. You know, maybe you have the passion to continue to create educational videos, even though very few people are watching them. But inevitably, what I see happen to creators is they either, and especially in 2020, fall into this fighting the algorithm, or they drop out. And that means that as students, you're all missing out on the very best educators, the ones who care the most, the ones who want to teach you something like storytelling in photography or the history of photography as opposed to a quick trick or amateur versus pro, cheap camera versus expensive camera. We've done
that.
all of those things,
I'm
by
like,
the way.
yeah, I've been there.
Because we have to play this game. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
But
that's what clickbait is.
Okay, so I've also seen professors talk about how their education also has to be a bit performative. Like, you have to be entertaining to keep people's attention to get them to learn. And as someone that was teaching kids, that was something that I often had to do, is teach them in discrete ways. And then, of course, there are times when you have to hunker down and just, look, learning is hard work and it's not always fun. And that's the truth. But a lot of it can be entertaining. Isn't that what this clickbait thing is all about?
So I love watching educational videos on YouTube. And I have been watching history videos for a long time. And it does make me feel like I know something about history, even though I've just watched 5 videos on the Battle of Midway.
You watch drunk history.
And Normandy and drunk history. Those are great examples of sort of like zucchini frying education.
Yeah.
But then Ford released the new Bronco and Hummer released the new electric car. And I was interested in those topics. And now my whole feed, there's no more history in it at all. It's just car stuff and Doug DeMuro. And this algorithm now took me away from my education. And maybe I will get a history video that pops up in my feed, but it's going to be right next to some video about the new M4's ridiculous grill. And as a student, I now have that temptation. A student in college doesn't have some sexy new car, doesn't have to choose between a sexy new car or studying some important World War I lesson, right? And if they did, you'd see a lot of students leaving that World War I class. But that's the way YouTube is. It's taking totally irrelevant, flashy, clicky stuff and tempting you away from an actual education.
I actually, you know what, I'll give you the point on this one, because there's so many times when I go to YouTube and I start with an educational video and then they get me with the most clickbaity thing. They'll be like, what happened when she put bleach on her hair? And then the guy in the thumbnail's like, oh, and I'm like, I need to know. I was learning and now I'm not.
I'm going to get deeper into how YouTube is ruining your education. But first I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace, because they literally make this possible. Because I'm going to talk about the money that YouTube actually pays us and how it's completely insufficient. But Squarespace really makes up for that. They're the ones who allow all these educational materials to be produced. So if you need any type of website, whether it's for your photography portfolio or hopefully multiple photography portfolios because you really need more than one, or your restaurant or your dental office, head to squarespace.com/Tony, set up your website completely free on a trial. It will look beautiful even if you aren't a graphic designer. And if you love it, after 14 days, use the coupon code Tony and you'll get 10% off.
I can't stress enough, if you're not a graphic designer, don't think you're good at it, because I've made that mistake. So I'm gonna spare you the pain. Just let the designers at Squarespace handle it.
What are you talking about? I searched YouTube for graphic design and I clicked on the 5 worst logos, and now I know not to make a logo that looks like a butt.
That's interesting.
It really is what it's like to study something like that, because I have scratched the surface on graphic design and a million other subjects on YouTube, but not learned any of them well enough to develop it as a skill. Because it's the student that ultimately controls the curriculum.
So that's your next point.
Yeah, this is my next point. When you go to high school or college, you have somebody who has studied that material their entire life. They know the things that you need to know. The student walks in there knowing next to nothing. How could they possibly decide what they should be studying? They can't. That's why you have a professor there. They say, you need to know these things. You will sit there and you will listen to me and I will put it in your head and I will test you to make sure that you know it, and then we can send you out in the real world to apply those things. You would never take a freshman in college and say, what do you think you should know about psychology? No, that wouldn't make any sense because they don't know anything about psychology.
Well, that's what abstract psychology is for. That's the class everyone takes because that's the stuff they want to know. And then they're like, no, I have to memorize the regions of the brain. Darn. Just tell me why I'm crazy.
Another real problem is that the most important lessons in any field of study are often the most boring ones. And I have made videos about what I think are the most important things. The most recent was that it's really important to put time into taking any individual photo. And I just covered how I've taken more than 100 pictures of this lighthouse near our house, and how everyone is a little bit different because of changes in the weather and the birds flying past and a million other factors. And it is such a boring topic.
Yeah.
I literally think it's the most important lesson in photography.
Yeah.
It's what will really change people's photos. But almost nobody watched the video because it's not sexy. It's boring as hell.
Yeah, but it's not that immediate gratification either, or like, it's not that instant fun people are looking for. They don't want to be told, hey, guess what? You're going to be a good photographer if you're patient and you keep at it and you take a lot of photos and you repeat the process over and over again for many, many years. That doesn't inspire anyone because they want to do something now. They want to go take pictures on oranges in the grocery store, or, you know, they want like a funky hack that they can do in an afternoon for $10.
Right.
And when I say they, I mean me.
But that means that they're ill-prepared as photographers to create the most important images because their education has massive gaps in it. All the stuff that's about hard work and patience, and they're just missing.
I've got to say, I disagree with you on some points. I think you can learn a lot on YouTube, but you are swaying me on the fact that people really don't know what they don't know. You cannot make your own curriculum. And if you have no experience in a field, you don't know what is important, and that is why you need a teacher to map out your journey of learning. And so I'll agree with you. It's really hard to get a completely comprehensive education, even though you can learn a lot of bits and pieces.
Yeah, you can learn tasks on YouTube. I will concede that point. When I wanted to replace the mirror caps on my car, I found a YouTube video that showed me exactly how to do that. But I am now not prepared to be a mechanic. I didn't get any generalized knowledge. I know how to follow a recipe, but I did not become a master chef. And that's what YouTube does. My next point, I've talked about how the YouTube algorithm controls the videos that you see and ultimately the videos that you click on. That, of course, is all driven by making YouTube more money.
Yeah.
YouTube is incented to have you sit there as long as possible and click on as many videos as possible.
How do you know that?
They provide us as creators detailed algorithms that sort of explain this on a video by video basis. Every time you post a video, it tells you how many people are clicking it, how much money it's making, and if people aren't clicking it, it tells you precisely why they aren't clicking it. And one of the biggest reasons people aren't clicking on a video is, well, here's a specific example. I created an important lesson for people, a photography lesson, and I edited it down as tightly as possible, and it came to about 5 minutes long. And I posted it. It had great title, great thumbnail. YouTube said to me, YouTube is showing this video to fewer people because they aren't watching it for very long.
Because it was a short video.
If you want more people to watch your videos, you need them to watch for longer. Even though they were watching almost the entire 5 minutes on average, I needed to make longer videos. YouTube makes more money if you sit there and watch for 8 minutes, for 10 minutes. YouTube will stick ads in the middle of videos if they're longer than 8 minutes long. As a result, and this has changed over the years, but in 2020, YouTube will present you, the viewer, with videos that will have you sitting there for longer. But that is a ridiculous way to structure education. Our YouTube videos would be tips and tricks, and they would be 3 to 5 minutes long. And you would tell me, Tony, I have ADD and I'm watching this video and you need to trim it down and make it shorter.
Yeah.
In 2020, that is not a possibility. If you do that, YouTube will not show your videos to viewers. You need to take that 5-minute lesson and you need to make it 15 minutes. You need to drag it out and tease things and keep people watching. And that's kind of why a lot of videos start with like a 30-second pre-roll.
Yeah.
And
we should try that.
Yeah, and then they hook you along and then you have 48 seconds of drone footage and like, what's up guys, we're here. Because you need people to be watching for 15, 20, 30 minutes long, or YouTube won't bother showing other people your videos. You don't really get to pick these videos. My next point.
Whoa, teachers are paid to fight? That sounds awesome.
It's absolutely true. You cannot simply state any fact on YouTube. If a video becomes popular, other educators can make a video on the same topic.
Other like creators.
Other creators. They'll make a video on the same topic using the same keywords, and then the way the algorithm works is it will suggest that to people who viewed your video. So it gives their video an instant boost because of recency. And in fact, if they put their video out after yours, it might figure out that that more recent video should be presented first. So sometimes people will see the response video before the original video. This happens all the time. And then the person responding and arguing will actually make more money. I think that's a driving factor behind why so many creators get into little arguments with each other, because it just, YouTube motivates them financially to do that. It pays them to fight. But as a result, it makes it a very contentious and confusing place for the educators and the students, because you just watch like two of your own professors fighting it out over whether crop factor was a real thing or not. And honestly, you probably didn't have the patience to watch both of them, so you just pick the one you like better and go with that. It's a terrible way to teach people.
Yeah, but I also kind of understand it, because with all the things that we're talking about, YouTube, what I've seen, makes people so unstable and scared because they want to do this full time, but the algorithm is always changing, so they're always fighting to get on top. And if that means finding a more popular YouTuber and putting their face and their name in your thumbnail or your title and then saying controversial things about them, like, yeah, you're just thinking, oh, maybe this will be the one that gets me enough money that I can pay the bills this month. So it's like, there's this real desperation that kind of, you know, takes away someone's ability to just straight up teach, or even just straight up make entertaining content.
Yeah, what if for the kindergarten teachers, we suddenly changed the plan, and now all the kindergartners could pick the teacher that they wanted on any given day at any given minute, and then the teachers would only get paid if the students went to them?
Yeah.
What do you think educating kindergartners would suddenly be like? It would be, here's a bunch of candy, forget the alphabet, that's boring, here's some candy and cartoons.
I mean, our viewers are smarter than kindergartners, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm just trying to put it in the context of sort of the concrete classroom education that people know, and how screwed up things would become if the teachers were motivated in the same way that YouTube creators are.
Yeah, it does motivate people to be at odds with one another. And that goes into the whole thing I was talking about. YouTube does not pay people a living wage, but sponsors do. And I know people are really hard on YouTubers about that. I have some compassion for YouTubers, because when you know a bunch of them, you see what's going on in people's lives. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They really want to make YouTube their full-time gig, oftentimes so they can stay home with their kids, or because they're sick, or they have mobility issues, or they're on disability, or this is just their passion and this is what they want to do full-time. And it's tough. And not everybody has the same advantages. We were so lucky because we had our photography book, and that helped us really monetize what we're doing. And that we got lucky too. We got in at the right time. But YouTube does not pay the people that you're watching a living wage. They need to get sponsors. They need to sell merch. So they need you to buy that merch. They need you to donate to whatever Patreon or whatever they're doing. They actually truly, truly need that. They need you to buy their photography books. But yeah, and that makes it rough, because if you can't pay your bills, you kind of have to play along with the algorithm and do the clickbait and pick a fight with somebody, and you just got to make it work.
To put in real numbers, we have almost 1.5 million subscribers. We get average about 100,000 views a day. And when you take what YouTube pays us and you subtract out the cost of our video editing, because we pay video editors for a lot of our projects, the computer equipment we need, the hard drives, the bandwidth and internet access and such, between the two of us, we do not make minimum wage. And that means that we would not be able to survive off of just YouTube ads. And so people tell me, like, oh, I'm tired of hearing you talk about sponsors. The YouTube ads are enough. They might be enough for you, but they're not enough for us.
Yeah.
We cannot survive off of what YouTube makes us. And so what about all those smaller channels who they might be amazing educators with a message to share? YouTube is not paying them nearly enough to put their full time into learning. So they have to have a full-time job, and then maybe they have a little bit of energy left at the end of the day to make a video, but how long are they going to be able to keep it up for a decade like we have?
Well, what about that? Who's that guy you watch, like Captain Disillusionment or something?
Yeah.
Like he's really supported by his Patreon supporters, right?
Yeah, but he also actually edits video and does special effects for
Yeah,
people. Like
well,
he's a working video editor.
I mean, like his special effects and stuff are amazing, and his
Yeah.
production quality is amazing because people support him. So like, but my bigger point is that it's not easy to just be a YouTuber and not have all that extra support.
So to circle back to the metaphor of real life classroom environment, if you can imagine that middle school teachers didn't get minimum wage from the school, and instead they had to bring products into the classroom and spend some time selling the kids on them, that would infuriate you, right? But that is the real world for YouTube creators.
I don't want to like pull the train off the rails here, but in American schools, the teachers do this box top collecting.
They really do.
Where
this,
like it is kind of similar. Where like I don't know if other countries do this, but you can cut like a little tag off of like a cereal box, and then the teachers can collect them from all the students and hand them in for like I think school supplies or something. It's really sad. It's kind of similar to this actually.
So I would like to hear what you guys think. I'm sure some of you feel like you're getting a well-rounded education on YouTube, and I'd like to hear how you actually go about accomplishing that, because it just hasn't been my experience with anything that I've tried to study.
Can I give you my dirty secret now that I've been arguing with you this whole time?
Okay.
I learned Photoshop, InDesign, and Lightroom in college, and I paid for classes. And I read the whole book, and I did all the projects, and that's how I learned. I learned little tricks and tips and stuff on YouTube, but yeah, I actually paid for a real class.
Yeah, people try to learn, like they'll look up how to change a person's hair color in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And they'll learn how to do that one thing. But then it gets very confusing for them because they don't have a background in like using layers and doing adjustments and the different types of selections and masks and stuff.
That was actually one of the first lessons, is organizing your layers, which is really important in Photoshop. And that's in our Photoshop book. We taught that. That's part of the reason I knew what to teach. But yeah, you have a really good point, even though I just wanted to argue with you today. You do actually have to learn the boring fundamentals of these things.
Well, as I was explaining, Squarespace literally makes this possible for us. So by supporting them, you support us and you support all the educators and creators that they work with. Squarespace makes amazing and useful websites that you can apply to your online presence to make something better than just social media, better than Instagram, better than Facebook, something that is uniquely you, advertisement free, with a store where you can sell your products. Go to squarespace.com/Tony to set it up and try it out completely free. And then if you love it after 14 days, use the coupon code Tony. And thank you, Squarespace, for genuinely helping us build this studio and do all the educating that we have done.
Yeah. And let us know in the description down below what you think. Have you learned a lot from YouTube? Do you feel like you still needed real in-person classes or books that you had to learn from? I'm curious what other people's take is.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.